Will Florida State create enough explosive plays to score with SMU?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can place $5 on a bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today's show, I just want to talk about the ability to create explosive plays, some of the things that Florida State needs to do to create them, because if that doesn't happen against SMU, which averages 42.3 points per game, Florida State's going to struggle to even stay in the game against the Mustangs. It will be SMU's first ACC game. It's at home. They have a very good football team by their standards. Their fans are pretty crazy. They are going to be absolutely lit when Florida State goes to Dallas. Will Florida State be able to score with them? That is the crux of the entire game. And to be honest, I get asked that same question every day this week without much of an answer. So I want to hear from you. First off, comment on the YouTube channel. Give me a shout out on Locked On Seminoles on the X. I would love to hear what you think about it. I think this might be a little bit surprising to people, but I think Florida State could score 30 in this game, but it's a little more complex than saying the offense is going to do it. Okay, I take that back. It's a lot more complex than the offense is going to do it, and we're going to get into that now. Number one, right off the bat, the defense has to create, kind of like they did against Cal, some situations where they take the ball away and or they create negatives. Against the Bears, 12 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. I mean, that's absolutely elite at any level of football. When a team creates negatives, it will kind of help you get over how many yards they gain. As an example, Fernando Mendoza had 305 yards, I believe it was, passing. He can spin it. We knew that going into the game. He proved it. And even though they beat him up all game long, he absolutely got battered, no question. He still kept throwing elite passes. Nothing will completely take away from a quarterback that is accurate. That's why he threw for the yards he did. But they got 9 yards, or 9 points, excuse me. That's the bottom line, 9 points. The reason, when they got close to the end zone, they would find themselves at a penalty situation. Florida State, their defensive pass rush was really good. The offensive line was jumpy. They were getting after them. Blitzes coming off the edge. Patrick Payton by himself had 3 sacks. Jones Jr. had 2 sacks. They were very disruptive. That's clutch. It's the first time this season I could say they could be clutch. Well, they're going to need that again with a caveat against SMU. They're going to need that in the middle of the field and with extra something else too. It's time for I've said it all year. When are they going to get the pick six, the scoop and score? Florida State has to create explosives, not just on offense, but on defense. At the very least, they need 3 turnovers against SMU. They really do. Prove me wrong, but Florida State's offense is not going to just go out, grind out 12 to 15 play drives, and punch it from 75 yards out. They average 15 points a game. Let's just call it what it is. The offense is offensive. You must help them out. That starts with defense. 2, special teams. Lord only knows Florida State's punter, Mastromanno, is elite. Proven it over and over. He will probably get a chance to play in the National Football League. Fitz, he's got off the top of my head, 52, 54, and a 59-yard field goal this year. If you don't finish a drive, it is what it is. You want to score a touchdown, not a field goal. Fitz needs to be given an opportunity. There was a play or two where I thought the play calling didn't dictate the right result because they wanted to go for it. When you've got a kicker like Fitz, sometimes it's better when you've got an offense like Florida State does. Just put the ball between the uprights. We'll see what happens with the decision-making with Norvell, but that's a discussion for later this week. And then finally, it's time to talk about Florida State's offense with the inability, let's be honest here, not breaking enough tackles, too many missed blocks, and that includes the receivers, by the way. Receiver screens the last couple of weeks, there have been some really, really lackluster efforts on the edge. tight ends, whatever it is, somebody missing, taking a wrong step, not finishing a block, and oftentimes just being defeated. Block destruction, going around, whatever it is. Florida State did not block well on these, whether it's a tight end, whether it's an lineman, whether it's a receiver, whatever. They have not finished well enough. And if you just get one more block, think about how many guys Florida State has that can just absolutely fly. Benson, Douglas, Portier, all these guys can really run. Hakeem, you give them a sliver, it's not going to be much fun trying to track them down. That's not an easy task. But Florida State, name the last time that a very generic, everybody in the stadium knows it's coming play, and they pop it. Toss sweep, jet sweep, screen, wide receiver screen. Those are no different than what Bobby Bowden did, what Jimbo did, and what Norvell has done too. They've run as many screens as about any team in college football, but in the past they would hit. Florida State has failed. The jet sweeps and all that with Ja'Kai, I'd like to see a little more of that just as an option. I know having Jalen Lucas out, that's truly unfortunate, but it is what it is there. More importantly, somehow, some way, they've got to create more explosives, even if they are the basic plays like that. Because, again, Florida State's not good enough until proven otherwise that they can take 12 plays, not shoot themselves in the foot, penalty, drop passes, missed read, missed throw, whatever it is, and score. They've got to create explosives. SMU, again, 42.3 points per game. SMU is probably a little inflated with that because their schedule's weak. Houston Christian, etc. TCU's not exactly setting the world on fire with their defense either. But if Florida State does not create those explosives, and again, execution's what it's about. There's no magic recipe. They got to block better. Until that happens, they're not going to compete with SMU and other teams that can score in bunches. We're going to find out real quick because this week's SMU, then it's Clemson. If you do not bring an elite level of effort in your blocking, you will get run out of the building as Clemson. I can tell you that right now. Their offense is on fire. SMU's not much different. Florida State must find their ability to hit explosive plays. So we're going to do a little buy or sell next in regards to that, discussing whether or not Florida State has the ability to do it in the run game. Specifically, there's a couple of points there I want to talk about, the pass game, and how the defense is going to help that as well. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. Return on you. It's time to highlight the Roy Player of the Week. Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. Download Roy for iOS and Android and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes for $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. This week, we're going to go with Patrick Payton as the player that should be highlighted for Florida State. He did have 3 sacks. I mean, that's pretty impressive against Cal because he's done what he has to do to help his team win. Without him, they probably would not have come close to beating Cal. He was a major factor. So if you're impressed with him just like we are, then you should show him a little bit of love too. Just hop on Roy and throw in a few bucks. If everyone pitches in just $10, it adds up pretty fast for Patrick Payton or any other player on any given week. Now you have a chance to show your appreciation for Patrick Payton and his standout performance this week, as well as show what he can continue to do to bring for the Florida State Seminoles. Get off the sidelines and get into the NIL game with Roy and let yourself be known with the Florida State Seminoles. Also, today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. Therefore, hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LinkedIn/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So do Florida State fans feel a little better at least about the offense? Yes, no. I'm somewhere in between because they just can't finish drives. I need to see it. I'm a guy that's a little more glass half empty, but I think there's a chance this week just because naturally, from all the reps, not only during practice, but in games, you're going to gain a little more chemistry, at least hypothetically, right? The problem is Florida State is losing some players. Rodell's out. Hakeem's back. He looks like he's healthy. Maybe Byers is healthy, but they've had some guys dinged and it's hurting them. Jalen Lucas, etc. We'll see how it goes. So, first question, just open-ended. You don't have to answer this right away, but put it in the back of your mind. How many points did the Noles score against SMU? But remember, before you answer that, how do you expect the defense to play is the first question to answering how many points the offense should score. Why? Field position, field position, field position. Or even in a situation like this, maybe the defense scores, pick six, fumble, whatever it is, and the offense doesn't have to take as many risks and can dictate to SMU's defense. Just something to think about. We'll come back to that one at the end. Can Florida State score 30 or more against SMU? I say yes. Two reasons. Number one, I'm not sold on SMU's defense yet. Their schedule's weak. Number two, Florida State can't play this bad offensively all year. Again, I'm just using law of averages. What do you say, though? Do the Noles have an opportunity to score 24 points, 27, somewhere in that range? I'd say pretty high percentage chance. But to get to 30, you usually got to score 4 touchdowns. Maybe you kick one field goal and you end up at 31, 30 points, whatever. Can they do that without help from the defense or special teams? I would lean hard no at this point. As I noted earlier, the defense must come up with something, and it's not their fault, but because the offense is lacking so much right now, the defense has got to come up with something. The other alternative is the block punt, maybe getting great field position over and over again because of Mastromano. When he does punt, he is elite. Anything you can do to create field position and then finalize back-to-back after you create field position with a turnover. The Seminoles need that help on offense. So that's something to think about as well. When the Noles do have the ball, this is something that I talked about a lot after the game in the live show and on Sunday. The safeties for Cal just decided to be linebackers, basically. We have zero respect for your passing game over the middle / deep. That's why the overthrow to Benson isn't that shocking, even though he was open. Like, he was wide open. Because the safeties don't think DJ's even going to throw it there, so they don't care. That's the other extension of this. Some way, somehow, Florida State, in the early part of the game, must be able to throw a strike off a plain old drop back pass, and it is blatant old school. We can throw the ball to the middle of the field. I'm not talking 5 yards. I'm talking 15 to 25 yard deep in, post, something like that. Excuse me. Because if the safeties start creeping down again, Florida State's going to end up with 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns and get slaughtered. They must be able to throw the ball to the middle of the field. I'm going to say this on every single podcast this week, over and over and over and over again. It is awful to watch Florida State's passing game because they throw to the perimeter on the outskirts and then screens. They are scared to death to throw the ball in the middle of the field. The coaches brought in DJ, make it work. You don't like him throwing in the middle of the field? Too bad, make it happen anyway. You recruited it. Make it work. If not, you're not going to score. Those safeties are just going to keep coming down. So if they do, running the football in the middle of the field, you could have Bo Jackson in his prime. It will not matter. You can't play against 8 guys in the box. It doesn't work. And the safeties essentially are making it that way. So that being the case, will Florida State attack the middle of the field early in the game? Because if they don't, it's not going to work. So the other part about this is misdirection. They can use some things off misdirection. They've tried some of it. They have. But they've got to hit one of them too. I'm talking about a generic, again, I know this isn't exciting, misdirection with a jet sweep. Maybe it's a reverse off of it. Some action they've showed a million times. Add an extra wrinkle to it and catch somebody just quite frankly flat-footed. Defensive end sucks in too hard. Reverse to Ja'Kai. Reverse to Benson. Somebody that once they're in open space is no fun to try to tackle one-on-one. Florida State just hasn't been in those spots this year. Their one-on-one situation, there have been like 3 this year, maybe. They are the worst big play offense just about in major college football, if not the worst. So they're going to have to create something like that. And a few extra wrinkles wouldn't hurt from the offensive play calling, but I'm sure they're worried about a turnover with reverses, double passes, etc. But they did do the flea flicker a few weeks ago, so maybe that's something they can do. Next, and this is the one that just blows me away. When was the last time, again, that Florida State had a receiver catch a 3-yard hitch, a slant, some generic, again, this is not a rocket science where it's a triple thing like that, a slant, a screen, a deep over route, make the defender miss at the point, and then when everybody rallies to the ball, he makes 2 more miss. When I was growing up, that happened constantly. Florida State always had guys making defenders miss. I mean, it was comical. They've got the talent there to do that part. They may not have the best pure receivers, but I'm talking about football is already secured, tucked away, face up. I have a guy in front of me. Make him miss. It's the most frustrating thing because the one thing I thought for sure this year with the wide receivers, they were going to be awful to tackle one-on-one. I have been 100% wrong. They have not been that difficult in one-on-ones where the defender is definitively in front of them, not behind, but in front of them. They haven't been. Their yards after catch is just okay, and there hasn't been any one special or spectacular play that just changed the game's momentum play. You got to have it. Again, they're not grinding out 12 and 15 play drives. Not happening. DJ's not good enough. O-line's been way too inconsistent. Receivers, quite honestly, drop too many passes. They have dumb penalties at the worst times. And then again, the other team gives scholarships too. They're going to make some plays. 12 to 15 play drives are hard anyway. This team is not likely to have them. So you need a 25-yard play, a 35-yard play, an 80-yard play, at least a couple of times a game to change the scoreboard. Against an SMU team with 42.3 points per game coming in, you're going to need at least 2 or 3 of those kind of plays. And then the defense got to help you as well. Next, this is the one that's weirdest to me. And out of all the comments that I get on the YouTube page, is probably the one that's referenced the most with people, nobody having an answer for this. And I certainly don't either. How does a team enter a season with 210 career starts amongst their starting offensive line and stink? I still don't have a clue. I know that the passing attack, because DJ doesn't hit a lot, teams suck down into the box as the game goes on. So that part I'm not complaining about. But the safeties aren't the ones running through the gaps. It's still the front 7 players 95% of the time. They're missing blocks that they've been going through and learning for years. This is bizarre. They'll have 4 or 5 plays in a row, really good. And then when they miss, it's like a jailbreak. A couple of plays, Cam got just completely blasted in the last contest. So can that change? Buy or sell it? Maybe. I think it possibly could, but right now I would sell that because in 4 games, they haven't had any consistency up front. Again, that's why I keep coming back. Explosive plays. Prove me wrong, but they need to have them. Will they? I don't know. Red zone. Defensively, they've been really good. They held Cal to 9 points. Offensively, I just think it's more about execution, and that's the boringest answer ever. But DJ missing a pass, mentally, the offensive line just not succumbing to a failure up front. The running backs at Florida State are really talented. Even though they're a banged-up unit, they still got really talented guys. You execute and put them in enough one-on-ones, they're going to score on somebody by breaking a tackle, or like Cam just running over somebody. So I think it's an opportunity this week. SMU's got a massive nose guard, 2 pretty good inside linebackers, but you can't tell me Florida State's offensive line isn't completely different than what SMU has seen so far. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Finally, special teams. Can Florida State get a big play off of that? I would sell that they're going to, but you might have a chance against SMU. I don't think that's going to be the most focal point for that team. Maybe somebody from Florida State blocks a punt or something like that. That's something to think about. I could buy that happening very, very easily. When we come back, going to talk about a few guys that I think individually Florida State needs to see take another step up. Because if that happens, it could create an upset in Dallas. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. Hey, NFL fans, you can get going with the big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get in a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Which Noles need to step up the most to create these special plays on either side of the ball? Not just offense, but either side of the ball. What do you think? Here's a couple of guys that I think are the case. Now, when you hear a few of these names, you're going to be like, Brian, these guys are playing good. That's okay. Hear it all the way out before you pass judgment. Key here, all the way out. I oftentimes have people comment on YouTube. You can tell they listen to about 1 or 2 words of a sentence, pass judgment, and then comment it. All the way out. Listen to everything. Blake Nicholson, linebacker. He's been playing much better, been playing more reps, being more impactful. Good for the young man, sophomore for the Noles. I think he can still take another step forward. He might be the guy that gets Florida State that scoop and score, a block punt, a sack in a critical moment, in addition to what the D-line has been doing anyway, to change a game. His upside is through the roof because he's so athletic and he does play well downhill. Florida State needs more of it. But again, they need explosive plays, and that's not limited to the offensive side of the ball. Nicholson's a guy I think has a chance to be an all-ACC performer before he leaves Tallahassee. Let's see what he does against SMU. 2, this one is a little bit more difficult to grade. Darrell Jackson. He played a little better the last week or so, but has he even remotely lived up to the expectations? No, not even close. At his size, with his experience, with his motivation, he should be one of the more dominant D tackles in college football. He is not even close. It is time for him to turn on the switch where once he gets into the backfield, because he seems to do so quite a bit, he actually finalizes plays. He's such a big guy. I don't think many people realize how massive he is because he's so athletic. He must finish plays. He's capable. Maybe he's the one that gets the guy on the ground right before it goes to the ground, though. He pops the ball loose. Maybe it's Nicholson that scores. Maybe it's Quindarius Jones or whatever. Florida State needs more big plays out of the big fellow, Mr. Jackson. Speaking of Quindarius, man, he was really good in coverage against Cal. He doesn't make a lot of tackles and all that, but he's a cover corner playing man, so he's never going to have a lot of stats. But that's the guy they went after, and give him credit. Cal, their quarterback's elite in terms of accuracy. He might be the most accurate quarterback in college football. But Quindarius had 3 pass breakups in one game, even against a poor quarterback. That would be very good. He had 3 against the guy that'll probably get drafted. That's as good as it gets. Now, instead of getting a hand on it, he plays through the ball carrier, or the receiver. Get your head around and just take it. Your technique, your speed, your length are getting you in position. Just read the eyes. Turn around. It is time for him to get a pick. And as athletic as Quindarius Jones is, I would not be surprised if he zigged and zagged all the way through the opposing team and punched it for a touchdown. That is a rising star at Florida State. He's only a sophomore, but he has got an elite skill set. Over 6 foot tall, with his length and his athleticism, that's a good football player. Now back to the side of the ball most people are thinking of when you hear playmaker. Will a wide receiver stand out? This has been one of the biggest questions going into Florida State's 2024 season. And to be honest with you, it has not been very good. The wide receiver group as a whole has been major league disappointing. But they at least had a few moments the last few games you could kind of look at and say, okay, I like that. There's a bomb to Benson. There have been a few passes to Morlock, etc. Hakeem's back in the lineup. Obviously, the throw to Ja'Kai was ridiculous from DJ Uiagalelei, and that was the game winner against Cal. Can you consistently make a few more of those plays? Ja'Kai stacked his guy. It was a perfect throw, and then he punched it by outrunning the defender. That's as rare a play as you're going to see. I mean, literally, that might be the best passing play for any team in the country this year. Ironic because Florida State's passing game's so bad, but it was elite all around from a technical standpoint. Now can you make some more of those plays, and can there be a true number one, or at least something close to it, where teams have to scheme against the Florida State receiver? You open up the running game a million times if you do that. Right now, nobody respects Florida State's receivers or quarterback for that matter. And that's why teams are diving into the box with their safeties. And after that first quarter, okay, he's not throwing well. Let's just bring the safeties down. It is an open book for anybody in the stadium to know what they're going to do. Play tight coverage on the outside. No respect for the middle of the field. They're not going to throw there. Stuff the run. They'll punt. It is rinse and repeat. Somebody's got to step up. Deep ball, screen, the whole 9 yards. And I mean a true difference maker. If not, it's just going to be Florida State struggling to score all year long. Somebody has to step up. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm talking about the opponent fears this player. And they fear it from the booth, calling the plays first. That's the most important thing, to keep guys from coming down and playing run from the secondary. That's very important. Next, this is something that's more mental than physical. So when you hear the name, be careful what you think here. Hear it all the way out. Mo Smith. He's the center, 6-year senior, is one of the leaders all around for the Noles. It's a really hard task to run the ball. When we talked about this over and over in this pod, many others, they have no respect for the passing game. None. How do you block that? I don't know. But somehow, some way, even if they are coming in the box, you can't be averaging 2 yards a carry. Second half, Florida State just got destroyed up front. Again, part of that is numbers. They got to figure it out anyway. Because what if DJ's just really not going to throw to the middle of the field come hell, come high water? You're never going to score. They got to figure that out. You're not going to win a game just on DJ's right arm. That's proven. What can you do? Mo is the most experienced player. He's your center. He makes line calls. His mentality, his maturity, and his leadership probably will be counted on as much, if not more, than his physicality and just snapping the football to DJ accurately play after play. Why? Again, it's all those things that he has. The character, the effort. Remember, he played hurt most of last year. He's the kind of guy you're going to rally around. He's got to play his game in the trenches and block. But again, more importantly, it's between the 2 years. Can he help his teammates figure out some things with the coaches? They got to come up with a running play that even against 7-8 in the box can get them 3 or 4 yards. And that's hard. But again, do you really trust DJ to consistently make passing plays that aren't screens or just out routes? Challenge the middle of the field. Throw deep and be accurate. 15-yard or more passes that goes beyond the line of scrimmage before anybody touches it. I do not. Either do the defensive teams that are going to be playing this week, next week, etc. They got to figure out a way to run the ball in the middle of the field so they can set up some of those screens, so they can set up their outside runs. If not, it's going to be really, really hard to score. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to watch and talk about some Noles football. It's a lot of fun for me, and I want to continue to grow this channel. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe. Hit those notification buttons. Make sure that you share this podcast. Truly appreciate it. Once again, I will see you again on Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to have our prediction show. So stick with us all week long here on Locked On Seminoles.